Good morning. Welcome to part 4 of Sconces with the art of Keith Busher Precious Mutations tutorial on building some candle sconces, some wall candle sconces with skulls down them. Part 1 we talked about how we were kind of going to set everything up. Part 2 we did some eyes and some teeth. Part 3 we started to paint the teeth and started to paint the eyes, but then we needed to let them dry. And part 4 we're going to continue a little bit on the eyes and the teeth, the paint job, before we can start sculpting, because it's a lot easier to paint them before than it is to paint them after. Okay, so I'm going to start with the eyes. I don't want them looking too similar, so we're going to do, one's going to have a pair of blue eyes, one's going to have a pair of green eyes. Then we're going to dry brush the teeth with some unbleached titanium, which is a bit of an off-white, like a parchment type color, and then we'll highlight those with white. So this is where we left off yesterday. If you remember, we painted the pupils on, and then we covered it with a thin coat of glaze. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add some eye color, and then we'll add another coat, like a darker eye color that's for the background. And then we're going to put another coat of glaze on, and then we'll do a lighter coat, and then another coat of glaze, and that just gives them a really glossy look, but also a bit of a 3D effect if you do it right. And then you saw that we did the dark brown wash with the teeth, and then we added a bit of like that mustardy color, the ochre. So we need a fine brush, a pretty fine detail brush, in order to do the eyes. So I'm going to try and find a brush here. Sorry, should have set this up first. I'm going to set up, I got a pretty fine brush here. And I got my water on hand. Don't want too much water though. We don't want the paint running while we're trying to do the eyes. This is a pretty fine detail. So I'm gonna use a brilliant blue, a darker blue, as the base. This is like so little amount of paint, I'm not even going to put a dab onto my palette. I'm just going to use the paint that's already in the cap. Just, minimum waste. And all we're gonna do is go around the outside of that pupil that we painted yesterday. It can be a little bit tricky trying to get the right proportion for eyes. You don't want to make your eye pupils too big or too small. I tend to make them too small, but these ones will be good. You also want them to kind of match each other. Trying very hard not to cover that pupil up, but it is what it is. Everything is fixable. It's kind of like when I started to learn how to use a computer, I was always terrified that somehow I was going to push the button that was going to cause the thing to catch on fire. And it took me a few years as a kid to learn that nothing is irreparable. You can always go back and fix things. It's not the end of the world if you make a minor mistake. Don't let it ruin your whole project. You don't have to throw everything away. So we're pretty close there. Clean off my brush. Use paper towel this time so I don't ruin another pair of pants. Get the paint off, and then we'll paint the other ones. The other eyes, I was going to do green. So I've got a dark green here. We've got sap green. Same thing. We're just going to use the paint that's in the cap so we're not wasting paint. Everybody else have problems with Facebook yesterday? I don't know. I tried to upload the video that I did yesterday like 3 times and it wouldn't go in. So I uploaded it this morning, and now you get a 2 for today because I'll upload this one when I'm done. Okay. So here, green eyes. Oh my goodness. Too much coffee today. This green paint doesn't want to necessarily go on all that thick or smooth, which is fine too. Might have to do a second coat, but you know, it's going to be under gloss. It'll be fine. The gloss too, as you're putting gloss on, tends to smooth out stuff. If it's a little bit gloppy, you know, eyes are not perfectly smooth texture, so don't worry if it's a bit gloppy. But when you put on the glaze has a tendency to kind of be somewhat self-leveling, so it will take out any imperfections, any inconsistencies, any lumps that you may have. Okay, so we got 2 green eyes and 2 blue eyes. I'll put those down there. Cleaning off my brush again. Using some green paint. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, we will put on some of the parchment color on the teeth. Now for that, we do dry brushing. If you guys all know about this stuff, I'm sorry. You know, I'm just trying to cover all the bases for people who might not be familiar with certain terms or anything like that. So this is unbleached titanium. You see it's not quite white. It's like a parchment kind of off-white. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. And again, we can just use the stuff right from the cap. Now, I'm not going to wet. This is an old beat up brush that I have. It's seen many better days. I'll try and get it into focus. So it's about the size of the tooth. So what we're going to do with this is dry brushing. So we are not going to wet the brush at all. We're not going to have any water. And the idea is to kind of get the minimum amount of paint on it. So we're going to put a little bit of paint on. And we're actually just going to like brush most of it off onto like a piece of paper or paper towel or something like that, because we essentially want the minimum amount. And then what you do is you just quickly brush it on over top. And what that's going to do, yesterday what we were doing was we were making the paint very wet, right? And what that did is it made the paint sink down into all the spots. Now when you're dry brushing, it has the opposite effect. There's no water, so the paint's not going to run. And what you're doing by just brushing it over the top is highlighting the tops of the teeth, right? So it's just going to hit the high spots. It's not going to go in where the paint was. So you see that the brown, the dark brown that we washed it with, stays. And I just hit kind of the end of the tooth so that that brown staining, that light brown staining, is still kind of there. So it's subtle, but you see here is a little bit different now. Here we've got a little bit more depth and definition. I end up usually putting at least like 3 to 4 different coats of color of paint on all of my pieces. I go pretty hardcore. So same thing, we're just going to dry brush these teeth here. Because the secret to good depth on your pieces, to get good shading, to get like undertones in the skin, those sorts of things, is to have multiple layers of paint on them, right? And you'll get good at it. And what ends up happening is you put like deep colors underneath. You paint something and it looks terrible, and you're like, oh my god, this is awful. And then what you end up doing, and that's it. That's all that we're gonna dry brush on there for now. And dry brushing dries pretty quickly. But then what you can do is, once you've got that deep base, you can dry brush things on. You can put a wash on of lighter colors, and it all adds highlights, and it makes pieces just look a little more transparent, a little more thin, right? It's pretty interesting. And again, like I said before, same thing with computers. If you screw something up, you can always go back and fix it, right? You just kind of paint it over again, put a new coat of primer on. Now I'm going to try and do the gums here. So again, we're going back to our red, alizarin crimson, just a touch of it. And because it's pretty fine detail, I'm going to use my little fine brush again. And I'm going to try and hit up these gums here. And I'm going to put it on pretty thick, because what I'm going to end up doing is dry brushing like a lighter pink on again. Sorry, out of the camera view there. I may have done this in the wrong order. It might have been smarter to do the gums first and then dry brush the pink on before I started doing the teeth and stuff, but that's all part of the process. You learn. There's no rights, no wrongs, just how difficult you make it for yourself. And I am the king of making things difficult for myself. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. I don't know how well they're uploading. I don't know how visible they are. I'm also putting them, so right now I'm posting them to the return of the things from the thrift shop Facebook page. I am also posting them on my own page, which is the Art of Keith Busher Precious Mutations Facebook page. You can see all the stuff that I do there. We'll be opening up our Etsy shop again soon, once I get some time. Right now, my 9-to-5 job has got me on the afternoon shift, unfortunately, and that's not a whole lot of fun. And it kind of, that coupled with family life and everything like that, it's got me only about an hour each day in the studio, which I'm trying to make these videos for you guys. And I'm really excited about doing this. I think it's fun. I think we're going to end up, I'm going to get my daughter involved because she took an editing class in high school. So I think we're going to open a YouTube channel, and all my projects from here on forth will have tutorials and videos to go along with them. You guys can follow along. This one I'm focusing on kind of one project right now, but those other ones I'll probably be able to, if I get more time, I'll be able to upload more stuff, because I'll have like 2 or 3 projects on the go. It's entirely possible I may have found somebody to sponsor me. Shh, that's a secret. If that's the case, it could be pretty exciting. But yeah, I really want to spend more time in my art studio, but life gets in the way, as all of us do. We're crafters. This is a hobby. This is what we do. I unfortunately had to learn a hard lesson. So there's the first set of gums done, and when you just do one color and you're like, oh man, doesn't look right, it's not gonna work. But that's always a way. And again, we don't need to worry, because we're gonna cover these with lips in places and stuff, so you're not gonna see all of this. So if you don't do a fantastic job painting your gums and stuff, that's alright too. Anyway, we're all crafters, but we all got to live life. And I learned, unfortunately, a very hard lesson this year that, you need to balance everything. You can't just be go, go, go all the time. I was working a 9 to 5 and, as well as trying to keep my art business going and everything like that. And I lost touch with some people that it's really important to me. And that was a wake-up call for me. So, taking a bit of step back in both, not doing as many shows this year, but, making more time for family, that sort of thing. Because, like I said, it's all about balance. There is such thing as unhealthy obsession with work and even doing stuff like this. Arts and crafts are a blast, and sharing them with people really makes you feel like you're part of a community, but being in the studio and stuff sometimes it's a bit isolating. Anyway, that's all sad stuff. I'm just trying to fill time while I'm doing this tedious gum work. So you see, so you're really starting to see kind of the face, a bit of the face shape coming together. I hope you guys are still interested, and it's kind of neat to see it evolving. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I'm still kind of like cool sometimes. So there you go. We got some gums, we got some eyes. My hand's in the light, sorry about that. We got some gums, we got some eyes. We're starting to get places. We're starting to see some results. I'm really excited about, showing you guys how to start doing the sculpting around the faces and stuff. But these are all parts that you kind of gotta do first. So, as we did yesterday, after we put a coat of color on the eyes, we're going to add a coat of varnish for that 3D effect, and just to kind of keep everything leveled out. Don't need too much. And then what we'll do after we do the varnish is we'll go back and we'll dry brush a bit more white onto the teeth, not the unbleached titanium. I said we don't use black. I don't use blacks and whites, but a little bit of white as a tiny bit of a highlight will work. And we'll add some pink to the gums. So we're not going too crazy with the glaze, and like I said yesterday, don't overwork it, because what you'll end up doing is just taking that paint that you put on and just taking it right off again with this gloss. It dries pretty quick, it gets pretty tacky, so if you overwork it, if you're playing around with it, it'll come right off. Jeez, these videos waste no time getting long. I'm sorry. I promise I'm going to learn how to edit them so that you guys don't have to sit through like half-an-hour videos every day, listening to me drone on and on. Alright, so that's another coat of glaze on the eyes. So let's add a little bit of white dry brushing for the teeth. Then we'll do a bit of pink. And then I'll add a little bit more of a highlight color for the eyes to make them pop a little bit. And then we'll call it a day. How's that? Okay, again, all we need is just kind of what's in the cap already. So this is me dry brushing, getting the paint off the brush, and just a little bit on the edge of the teeth, on the very tips of the teeth. We're leaving the gums a little bit dirty and such. Get a little more paint. Get most of it off. You just barely want to touch the teeth at all, right? Alright, so there you see we got a bit more depth on the teeth now. I'm trying to find that focal point where you can really see kind of how the depth on the teeth. Alright, so we put that down for a second. Now we're gonna dry brush some gums on. Kind of trying to do this quickly. We're already over 20 minutes. I don't normally work this fast. I'm trying to do it so that you guys are still paying attention and still interested. Maybe once I learn how to edit and stuff, then I can trim these videos down. I'm also doing 2 skulls. If I was just doing one, it would go a lot quicker. Alright, so there's our pink. It's just like a light peach. And I'm just gonna hit up the gums. If you really want to do like a lot of transition kind of coloring, what you can do is you start with your base color, your red or whatever, and then if you know kind of what color you want to highlight up to, then your next step would be to take it and mix it with your highlight color, so you kind of get a halfway in between your base and your highlight color. And in doing that, then you've got a third layer. So I just roughly kind of scuff that on, and you see the gums go from being like bright red to kind of a pinkish hue. I'm not going too heavy on it because you still want to see a bit of the red underneath. You still want those gums to look a bit like inflamed, infected. Just kind of scratching the surface of it. If you try and dry brush too quickly before the other paint dries, sometimes you'll end up taking that paint off. So just be careful. That's why you want to go super light. You're not like you're just like lightly tapping it. Okay. The same with washes, right? Like you want to make sure something is dried on there before you wash it, because otherwise you just wash your old paint off. Alright, so there's kind of our gums. Now I'm going to use a lighter blue for the first eye. Let's just use the paint in the cap again. So again, we're going to use that super fine brush. Depending on how big your eyes are, you can really kind of play with how much detail you want to put in that eye. Right? This is not my finest brush. If you put too much on, your thumb's a good way of just removing a little bit of it. But again, you want to see the dark through the light. You don't want to completely block out your base color. So we're just adding a little bit of highlight to differentiate between layers. So it's almost unnoticeable, but it's there, and it just subtly gives you the idea that there's a different layer there. Now we're going to do the same thing with the green. I have a lighter green, so we'll add some of that in. I have, oddly enough, called light green, I really want to get kind of this painting done so we can move on to the sculpting again tomorrow. So light green, same thing. Just kind of touching it. It doesn't have to be even the same color, like if you started with blue eyes. Another thing that I've done on like bigger projects is using metallic colors, because then it's got a bit of a twinkle to it. Using metallic colors for your base. You know, you can go green and then use like almost like a yellow or a gold to add the highlight to the eye. Okay, so the dry brushing dries a lot faster. So we're going to do one more thing to the teeth real quick. And then after that we can, you know, we could glaze them. So again, I am going to take my dark brown, the raw umber, and that wash that we did yesterday on the teeth. Just gonna do that again real quick today. So I've got a much softer brush, and I don't want to wash away everything that I did today. So I'm gonna make it quite damp, quite wet. Because again, I just want to go in and fill in some of those spots. Those low spots. So we're just gonna, and you can go right over the gums because you'll still end up having that pink and everything that's there. We're just going to add some definition between the teeth and stuff. And stuff. Oh, way too much. Not. So again, if you do that, if you end up having too much, remember we talked yesterday, get a bit more water on your brush and you can just kind of pull it out a little bit. But I think that actually worked out quite well for us. So, more water. Making sure our brush is wet, our paint is nice and wet. And again, we're just going to go over those spots that we hit yesterday. Give it a little bit more depth and definition. Those highlights will stay in there because now you've got like 3 different sets of depth. Okay, so here's today's progress. We added the gums, we added the 2 colors for the eyes. Sorry, I'm trying to get decent light for you guys. So we added more definition to the eyes. We added a couple more layers of dry brushing to the gums and the teeth. And then, so what I'm going to do while we're off, because you guys don't really need to see it, is I'm going to add another layer of glaze to the eyes. I'm going to add a layer of glaze to the teeth once it dries, because that will, your teeth and your mouth are generally wet, so that adds a different collection. And then tomorrow when we come back, we're going to start sculpting lips and chin and those sorts of things again. But now you're starting to really see that face come alive. It's pretty cool. I like it. I dig it. Alright, thank you very much. Sorry, my videos just keep getting longer and longer. Please leave comments letting me know you're still watching, if it's working for you, if it's not working for you, if you like it, if you don't like it, things that you want to see. And I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.